What's up, YouTube? So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about what the Miami Dolphins did, after the first round in this past draft. I kind of already talked about Christian Wilkins, so I'm going to move on from that already. I'm not even going to really talk about that. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to what else we did in this class. And I'm going to go ahead and count Josh Rosen in that. Because, he's only a second-year quarterback, so I kind of feel like we kind of drafted him with our second-round pick. So I guess I'll start there. First of all, I'm really not a big fan of Josh Rosen. I never have been. I think, first of all, he's accurate enough. His arm strength isn't terrible. But he makes very inconsistent decisions. He makes a lot of really questionable decisions, and even in college, he showed himself doing that. I was never really too high on him, but the biggest problem with him is that he doesn't do very well under pressure. When he gets any kind of pressure in the backfield, he really starts to panic, and his decision making really drops. And considering that Miami really doesn't have a very good offensive line right now, that is going to be a pretty big problem. So that's just going to be something we'll have to look out for. Unfortunately, I've talked about what I wanted to do. I wanted to build the house this year, get a solid offensive line, work on other positions, and address quarterback in next year's class when there's a bunch of really good quarterbacks. There's 3 of them that I think are potential Pro Bowlers. But whatever. This is our guy now, so we got to run with it now. So, anyway, I'm going to move past him and go on to the guy we drafted in the 3rd round, which is Michael Dieter out of Wisconsin. He is a offensive lineman. I think we're probably going to end up playing him at guard, probably left guard. But I have seen some film of him playing left tackle and center. But I think his best work is at left guard, so I think that's probably where we're going to put him. And honestly, other than left tackle, we don't have anything right now anyway, so you can put him pretty much anywhere else. So we have a vacancy at left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle in my eyes. But as far as versatility goes, it is good to know that he does have some experience at left tackle and center as well. Injuries happen. We might have to move him around, whatever. I do think I think he will be a starter day one, pretty much by default, really. I'm not totally big on him. He's shown some decent stuff in film. Actually, when he was playing left tackle, he actually played against Ohio State, and he lined up against Nick Bosa quite a bit. And he didn't win, but he didn't die either. He didn't straight up just fail constantly with him. Nick Bosa did kick his ass a couple times, but he didn't die. So that's good. I'd like to see him get a little bit more consistent with his hands, be a little bit more consistent about getting his hands inside and, showing off some power. And he also needs to get more consistent with finishing. Like, a lot of times when he gets his hands on a guy, he kind of lets him go before the play is over, and it's really come back to bite him, especially on run plays. He can move a little bit. He's pretty good about getting to second level, which is something I like to see. One thing I will say about him, though, is that he did get his ass kicked in the Senior Bowl. And not just in the game, but all week at practice, he got his ass kicked and then got his ass kicked in the game as well. I don't know if he was maybe injured or anything, but it was really apparent. Because I was I was kind of looking at him before the Senior Bowl, and I was thinking he was a pretty decent guard. I was kind of high on him, but after I seen him get his ass kicked like that, I had to look back through it, and I'm not as high on him as I used to be. But anyway, I'll move on to our next pick, or at least the next guy I'm going to be talking about. We drafted a linebacker, Andrew Van Ginkel, I believe is how you pronounce it. Like I said, he's a linebacker. Miami is switching to a multiple style defense, so he'll be playing multiple positions. I see him as another athletic linebacker. I see him primarily at will, at least in a 4-3 scheme. When we switch to a 3-4, he'll probably have to play inside. But yeah, when we go to 3-4, don't be surprised if we take him off the field and just keep in Baker and McMillan. I see him primarily at will, and that's about it. He didn't run a 40 at the combine, but at his pro day, he ran a 4.56, so he's pretty athletic for a linebacker. He moves very well. He's actually pretty decent in zone and man coverage, so that's something I really like to see. I did see he played college at South Dakota, by the way. I did see them move him around the field a little bit. I've seen him play at Sam and Will. I never seen him play at Mike, though. Never seen him play in the middle. And I don't really want to see him there, personally. I kind of just want to see him at Will. Because his biggest problem is he doesn't get off blocks very well. Like, at all. If an offensive lineman gets their hands on him, the play is kind of over for him. So, unfortunately, I don't really see him as a very good blitzer either. He can be if the blitz is creative enough because he can use his athleticism to just run past the offensive lineman, but, it's going to have to be something creative to blitz with him. He does read the quarterback's eyes pretty well, and he has gotten a good number of interceptions doing that. He has a very good motor. Like, even when he is getting blocked, he doesn't stop. He keeps going throughout the entire play, so that's something I definitely love. I just want to see him run free. I don't really... That's why I want him at will. Because when you're playing will, not being able to get off blocks isn't really as big of a problem. Clear example, the Dallas Cowboys, Leighton Vander Esch, who was a phenomenal rookie in this past season. In college, my biggest problem with him is he couldn't get off blocks, but Dallas put him at will, so it wouldn't be as big of a problem for him, and he was very explosive. Just let him be fast, let him read the quarterback, and let him make plays, and that's what I think we can do with Andrew. I'm not saying he's Leighton Vander Esch because he's not nearly as good as Leighton Vander Esch, but I think we can play him in a similar fashion. Moving on to the guy we drafted in the 6th round, Isaiah Prince, tackle out of Ohio State. I do not like Ohio State offensive linemen. I don't. I don't think they know how to coach offensive linemen in the slightest. I don't like really anything about this guy. I honestly don't think he's actually even going to make the team, if I'm being completely honest. Which is fine. He was a 6th round pick, so whatever. But he doesn't hit first like ever. When he's dropping back, he kind of lets the defensive lineman hit him first, which can be a problem if you're up against a serious threat. He's got very inconsistent hands. He gets his hands outside a lot and loses a lot of power that way, which is a problem because he's really not that powerful anyway. I watched the film on him, and he gets his ass whooped a lot. and that's against college talent, let alone in the NFL. Um, the one thing I kind of do like about him, the one nice thing I can say, is that he does handle like crosses pretty well. You know, he doesn't really let that trip him up. He's very good about blocking one guy, letting him go, and then blocking the next guy when he comes to him. But that's really the only thing I can really say about him, because overall, I don't like him. I think he's pretty trash, to be honest with you. I don't think he'll make the team. But honestly, he actually might end up making the team just because of how bad our offensive line is. Ugh. Anyway, I'm going to cheer myself up talking about this next pick. Myles Gaskin, running back out of Washington. He's pretty damn good. He cheers me up after talking about Isaiah Prince. I think getting him in the 7th round is pretty good value. He ran a 4.58, so he's not one of the fastest running backs in the class. But he's got enough speed to get the job done, and he's pretty elusive. Very smooth feet, doesn't get too wide in his cuts. You know, he's really good about setting up his moves, setting up the defender, and really exploiting it. Really exploiting him. I've seen him stop and start without really losing too much of his speed. He's not a very big guy. He's about 5'9", 205 ish. So he's not a very big back. He's not necessarily powerful per se. I mean, he's pretty small, but he does keep his feet moving, which can get him some extra yards. So even when he's being tackled, sometimes he'll gain a couple more yards just by keeping his feet moving, and sometimes that'll help him break tackles as well. He doesn't have much top end speed. Like I said, he ran a 4.58, which isn't bad at all, but not one of the faster running backs in the class. He does see gaps very well and takes what he can get. He doesn't get too greedy. He doesn't try to cut back and reverse field. None of that shit. He is a he's a guy that the second he sees a gap, he'll hit it and he'll get whatever he can get. And if he has to show a little bit of power, he will. He can make his own space, which is good because he's going to need to because our offensive line isn't very good. So that'll be something very good for him. As far as his blocking goes, he's competitive at it. He is very competitive. He's a very willing blocker, but unfortunately, him being so small, there's only so much he can do. So I mean, I'm glad to see that he's at least willing because there are some running backs that just try to shy away from it, but he definitely doesn't shy away. He's very willing and very competitive. This guy screams competitiveness all around. Actually, he's got pretty good balance. You know, he's pretty good about bouncing off of tacklers and keeping his balance. So that's something I like to see. I'd say he's probably more crafty than he is elusive. He's really good about setting up the defender and making him miss that way. I did see Washington put him out at slot. Putting him out at wide receiver position, but they didn't really throw to him that much. He does struggle with contested catches a little bit, but he does have some experience at receiver, so that couldn't hurt. Keep in mind, this is a 7th round pick, so I think the value we're getting from him is pretty good. Unfortunately, he will be competing for snaps with Kenyon Drake and Kalen Ballage, but I think this guy will add a very good addition, and I think this guy is someone we can use at least in rotation. Don't start him by any means. I think Kenyon Drake is the better player, and him and Kalen Ballage just have 2 different games. But overall, I like Myles Gaskin a lot. I think it's tremendous value getting him in the 7th, and it helped get Isaiah Prince's. Just helped me get that bad taste out of my mouth when we drafted him. The last guy, Chandler Fox, I'm not really going to talk about. He's a fullback. Not really going to talk about that, so yeah. Anyway, if you like this video, if you could please hit the like button. That would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comments down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.